Hey everybody, this is Creative Karma and welcome back to my room. Uh, keep in mind here, I'm actually doing this for video at 3 in the morning, so it's technically not Saturday, but, I missed last Saturday, and so now it's past this Saturday technically, but I'm not going to call it tomorrow until I wake up in the morning. So, this time I'm going to talk about vocational rehabilitation. And that's a program that I don't know if every state has. I have not done the research on that, unfortunately. I'm very ashamed of myself there. But it's a program that some states, I'm sure, do have that's supposed to help people get trained in the things that they are lacking so they could then move to the second phase of the program and find themselves a job. So, I'm going to be sort of in this program, in this talk program, what am I calling it for, sharing my story of my first experience with it, because I'm going through it a second time, but in a different way. So it's a completely different thing, and I'm not going to put anything out about my current situation, because that's something that's for a completely other time, and, where it's not part of this whole tale. But I'm also going to give the pros and cons. I'm going to start with my story first, so, if you get put off by it during the story, just hang on, wait for the pros and cons side of things, because that might change your mind at the end. I don't want to influence you at the write-off, but it may, if I did the pros and cons first, that may have turned you off. But I figure the story is the important part to start off with first. Now, I want to keep in mind, all the things I'm going to be talking about here are from my own perspective, my own opinion, and essentially in my own state. I'm from Tennessee, so it's one of those things that things may vary depending on what state you're actually from and where you decide to do these things, because there's different people. Your state may have more money, your state may have less money. It just depends on the situation you're in. Your state may not have voc rehab because there are other businesses and other organizations that take care of these things for you, and you don't have to worry about this. If you do, well, you're in my boat. If you don't, well, you're so lucky then. So, just to start off, when I did the program, I believe I had just gotten out of college. I had graduated, I'd gotten an English degree, and then I spent a few years not getting a job. I applied to 5 jobs a week. And, think about that, I'm in a very small town. There's not a whole lot of places to find jobs at, and eventually you're reapplying to the same place over and over again, and I just wasn't getting anywhere. Well, my mother, who was pretty into making sure I get somewhere, decided I needed to go to voc rehab. And I wasn't of the mind at that point where I could talk to anybody and feel like I could express my opinion anymore. But I went along with it, because it's my mom, I'm not used to saying no to my mother, who is really. But, so we went and talked to a lady who started to explain the program and things I should expect and yada yada. The whole rigmarole, the whole thing they try to sell you, whatever it is. And, fine, it seemed okay, because, while they said they were going to be teaching me things that, that I might know, some things I might not know, and then eventually move me into the second part where they would help me find a job, that during that part, there would be the possibility that there would be work. And what I mean by work is that there would be companies or warehouses or anything like that that wanted to get their stuff packaged, like for rubber bands or paper clips or something. And they have an overstock and they don't have people to come in and pack these things. So they would send it over to the voc rehab building and we would do it for them. And when we would do that, we would also get paid. So once a week, I could essentially get money while I was there. All in all, seemed like a good idea. I mean, hey, it gets me out of the house Monday through Friday. It teaches things I need refresher courses in, shows me where I'm at. They might pay me most of the time I'm there, and then they'll help me find a job. Sounds great. Woohoo. And for the first few weeks, pretty good. had jobs. You know, I got paid. I was doing all this stuff, doing really good. I felt sort of out of, you know, sort of weird because there was just a wide variety of people there, and you're there all day. You're there till morning. You have lunch there, and then you leave around 4:30ish. Well, at least the program that I was going through, their time limit was like that. So I was there at least at 9 in the morning, 8, 9 in the morning. Not a morning person, so that was a big sort of problem for me. But when I would get on a schedule, I'm okay. And, you know, I just kind of sailed along, and it was okay. I did this for a few months, keep in mind. I was there for a while, and everything seemed to sort of be going okay. Some of it was very academic, I'll say, because, again, I had an English degree. I'd been through college. I've been through some of this stuff before, and it just felt kind of, ugh. Which, if you saw my last video, you know, it's one of those moments I felt like I was, you know, a college person that they sent back to preschool to start over again at certain points. Which is, again, I'll get deeper into that kind of stuff in the pros and cons section. Then, again, as time went on, though, I seemed to be noticing problems. I didn't express them to my mother at that point because I sort of maybe thought it was just me, and I didn't, you know, figure it out until later when I told her that, you know, this was a problem. But the place I went seemed to be suffering from a lack of funding, which, if you watch the news at all, seems to be a common thread with a lot of places that help people who are technically disabled. That there's not a whole lot of money out there, and it's all very dependent on the president that we have at the time, the climate at the time, the Congress, whatever. You know, whether we have lots of hurricanes or tornadoes or natural disasters, or whether there's nothing going on at all. And, you know, whatever. And so, and the reason I say that is because, you know, when I was going, it's not like it was that long ago. DVDs were a thing, CDs were a thing. You know, it wasn't like we were 8-track tape people or anything, but all of the videos I was being shown were on VHS tapes. Now, again, I grew up watching VHS tapes. That was something that was my childhood. I still have a whole box of those in my closet that I might want to pull out from time to time. But it's not something that was commonly used then, unless you talk about your mom and dad's old home movies they took of you where you're wandering in your underwear. But, and that seemed kind of odd to me, but I sort of let it go, because they probably figure, hey, it's worked so far, let's keep doing the same thing again. So, you know, that was kind of one sort of red flag. And then the jobs dried up very quickly. After a while, for a few months, no money was coming in. I was spending my entire days there, not doing anything really besides just being taught. And that became a problem for the people that were teaching me, because they seemed to run out of things to teach me pretty fast for somebody who was supposed to be teaching us all these things that we needed to know and moving us through the system. And I was led to believe it would be going faster than what it was doing. But here we are, sort of trudging along, and they're sort of like, oh, we're getting near the end of the book. We're running out of things to teach. So let's put on a video. You know, when you're in high school or middle school, hey, when they wheel that car down and you get to watch a video, it's a great day because the teacher's taking a break, and so do you. But when they roll in a video cart because they don't have anything to teach you, at a voc rehab place where you're supposed to be being taught how you're going to get a job and what you're lacking and what you're needing to work on, it sort of kind of makes you feel off. Like, is this all you really have? Am I wasting my time here? And that went on for a while. And then it kind of got worse. They do all these like reviews, like they give you progress reports as you go along, because they determine when you can move on to their phase 2, which is they pair you with somebody that goes around and helps you apply for jobs, and they go with you to interviews if you want to and stuff like that. And they decide if you need more time in the program or if you can cut down to less time in the program in the first phase. And in one of my progress reports, they mentioned where they're going to add more time to my program because they thought I was wearing pajamas to class. Now, I would show you the shirt, but I'm not prepared for this. But the shirt I was wearing today that I assume that they're talking about, because normally I'm a very basic t-shirt and jeans kind of girl. Tennis shoes. I don't wear skirts. I don't wear tight clothes. Jeans, t-shirt. Very simple. The only time I sort of dressed up is I had this long shirt, comes down almost to my knees. It's buttoned up, and it has two little drawstrings because it has a little hood on the back. And in the beginning of the day, I had it tucked into my pants and belted and kind of pushed. It was fashion is what I was trying to portray. I was trying to look nice. But as the day went on, the belt felt like I was constricting, and I was like, get comfortable here. I just take this out and stuff. I left the belt on, but, just untucked my shirt. And I wore it down and loose. And I think that's what they coined on me for having a nightgown. And I'm thinking, whose pajamas has a hood? I mean, if you're wearing a hoodie to bed, that's saying either you don't have a roof or you're just really, really cold. But I don't think that's a regular feature in anybody's pajamas, if I'm honest. Unless you live in an igloo, maybe. So that's sort of another red flag that came up. Even my mother was a little surprised at that, because back then I wasn't the type of person who was going to go out anywhere, even through a drive-through, in my pajamas. If I was in my house and they said let's go get food and I was still in my pajamas, I would get fully dressed head to toe, makeup, the whole 9 yards, to get in a car, sit there, go through a drive-through, come home, get out of those clothes and put my pajamas back on. That was who I was. That's something I did, is to go in my pajamas. I just felt it was tacky. So, that's when Mom started paying closer attention to what was going on down there. And then it got worse. Even more so. As I said before, they were running out of things to teach us, it seemed. Then the teaching dried up altogether, because they have computers that were in the little classroom sort of thing we were in, out in this warehouse-style building. And there was 4 computers. Only one of them had internet. So for a month or two, they had us rotating with those computers. One of us would be on the one with internet, and we would be looking for jobs ourselves, while the others would be on the other 3 computers. Now, this sort of, again, was a red flag to me, because stage 2 of their process is they help us find jobs. If we are the ones looking for jobs ourselves, we could do that and not come to this program. We could do that out and about. You can go to the library if you don't have a computer at home to look for a job. We didn't need to come here for that. So, because they're supposed to be teaching us, and once we're ready to find jobs, then we're supposed to be moved to the second stage of the program. Not in the first stage, when we're still being kept there. That seems a little odd to me. But the other side of it, the flip side, so to speak, was even kind of worse. Because, as I mentioned, I'm an English major. And when you're going through college, if you've ever been there or if you haven't, English majors, you read a lot. You write a lot of papers. You type a lot on the computer. That's all you do, really. Those are your jobs. Your teachers expect you these grand papers that you spent hours of researching in the library and reading of books and all this stuff. And imagine having done all this, gotten your degree, then you go into this program because you're having trouble finding work, and for hours a day, 7-8 hours a day, being put onto a computer that teaches you the basics of how to type. Let's sink that in for a second. An English major who knows how to type, who's been typing up term papers and research papers and all this other stuff for teachers, now is doing the programs that teach you how to type, hands on a home row key thing and stuff like that. That's when I decided, okay, enough is kind of enough here. This has gone a little bit too far, because, you're supposed to be teaching me things I don't know, and I know this. This is, again, this is very much like a preschool sort of situation. What what are you doing to me? So, that afternoon, after I left Voc Rehab, I went and talked to my mother and told her, this is what's happening now. This is all we are doing. You know, yeah, we actually took this old, they had made the board game Life, which people have actually, have played, in your real lives at home. And they had made a version of it that was like Voc Rehab style that we edited and changed and made nicer. We played that for a couple of days, but we still did the computer stuff where you typed and looked for your own jobs. And that was it. I mean, it became more of a babysitting service is the way I saw it. And so, she kind of was very surprised at that, so she arranged for us to meet with my case manager down there and talk to her about the situation. Go, we need to find something that's more suiting to where I'm at in life. Because that was the whole point. We were trying to get my life going and started. I hadn't even had a full-time job ever at this point. I had lots of part-time jobs, but never something that was long-term. So, through talking with her, she reassured us she'd take care of it, and that we decided that, that what my goal was, I had wanted to go back to college and get my master's degree, because eventually I wanted to be a college literature professor. And you need a master's minimum to do that, and then you need a doctorate so they'll actually keep you on full time. So the deal was I would always stay half a day. I would leave before lunch, and in the afternoons I would not only job hunt, but I would also study to take the GRE test, which you need a score on to even go in to the master's program. You need a certain score depending on what school you're going to. So the program was set up. And I was like, fine, this works better. Great. I was only on the computer, 3-4 hours now instead of all day long. So, week or two goes by. Great. Hey, this is working out. It's still kind of boring, but at least now I have my afternoons back at home. So if I needed to go to the grocery store or whatever, I could do it for them. So then the other shoe dropped, as the phrase goes, and we were out there doing our normal thing, and they called us all together because they had an announcement for us, and the announcement was that it had been decided from, I guess, their higher ups or whatever, that no one could leave early, that no matter what, you had to stay all day long. And that was quite a shock to me, needless to say. And I'm not good with shocks or suddenness and stuff like that, where now this program I've been in has said I can leave early every day because it's, I've got other plans that they're not accommodating to I have to stay all day. So it quite upset me at the moment. I was nearly in tears at the time. So once lunch hit, where we got to break out, I went outside to call my mom and told her, excuse me, this is, I was crying and telling her what had happened and whatnot. She said, you just hang on there. I'll call and find out what's going on, or I'll figure it out. So I went back inside, started eating again, and finished up my lunch, and then my mom called me back. Took me back outside. She told me, talk to your case manager, go ahead, pack up your stuff, and come on home. I said, okay. So, went there, got my things, went home. A couple of days later, we had another meeting with my case manager again. This time I sat in the hallway. I wasn't really feeling like facing these people who had just turned my whole program and my whole life on its head for the sake of whatever their reason was. I mean, we never found that out. And the meeting that happened between my mother and my case manager was one I wish I had a recording for, a camera, something that we had proof of this with. But it came down to the lady looked at my mother in the eye and said that they don't have the skills and training they need here or at that facility to help people with Asperger's syndrome. When before we even started, before I even got in the program, they said, oh yes, we know exactly how to help people with various different disabilities and things like that. So essentially we were lied to. And that's something that, really set off the tone of, this is not the place where I needed to be. They don't have a firm grasp of what my disability is, what my needs are, and how to work with me to make the person I am into the best version of myself so I can work. So we completely cut ties with the program. I did my exit stuff and I left. A few months later, they actually called and wanted to, get sort of evaluation of themselves from me. And I pretty much gave them the poorest one I could give, saying nothing they did help me. I don't have a job. I don't have anything together. They really didn't do anything for me whatsoever. And that was the last of it until very recently. So, again, my story is probably going to be completely different from anybody else's experiences, but this was the one I had through the Tennessee Voc Rehab program that's close by to me. So it could be different somewhere else in Tennessee. But that's the end of that part. So now I'm actually going to move on to the pros side, so you can get the idea of what actually is positive about this program. Now, I want to preface this by saying, be very careful when you do go in there, because depending on where you're from and where you're going and all that stuff and what disability you might have, that they may not know much about your disability. You need to find that out firsthand. Really find out, do they know what they're talking about? And if they don't, what is the deal there? And so, to go into pros, there is a lot of good things that they were teaching. If you are at the very sort of beginning of your whole process, like I was stating before with the rap class that I was signed up for, that if you don't know how to do interview skills, if you're very self-conscious, if you don't know about telephone interviews, if you don't know, how to conduct yourself and things to wear and, various things like that, they'll teach you those things there. At least my program did. Also, you get to meet other people who are in the same sort of standard of life that you are. And it was very different than the rap class that I had, because while yes, there was some of them who were middle school age and high school age, some adults did pass through there. Some that are even older than myself. So it wasn't just necessarily for younger kids. This is for people of all ages who are having trouble getting back on their feet for one reason or another. Also, again, if the jobs, the money that was coming in, it makes you feel good about yourself. If the jobs keep showing up at the Voc Rehab that you're part of, that's a good source of income that you can use to help, you can have some fun money to go out and buy yourself something special or pay for your own food, and it makes you feel like you're doing something with your life instead of just you're just there. It feels like you have a job, even though you're not getting paid as much as you probably would at a regular job. And, then there are some people there are actually pretty nice and actually want to work with you and actually care about you. And, they praise you when you've done great things, and, they, talk to you in a way that, generally they're going to give you that positive reinforcement instead of making you feel like you just failed at life. They're not there to make you feel like you failed at anything. There's probably some more, but it's been such a long time since I've been there. It's kind of, a lot of things have left me. I'm mostly left with the cons. And that's going to lead me into those. Again, if you're at the beginning of your process and you're not really sure about your disability, if you don't even have a diagnosis yet, or if you do and you just don't know where to start, this is probably a good place to go, especially if you're ready to get out there and get a job. But if you've been working with therapists, if you're working with a life coach, if you've been working with your parents who have some sort of group, or if you've been working through people at your church or some other organization with disabilities, probably not the best idea to do. Because, again, it's all very basic. If you've done interviews, if you've been to interviews for jobs before, you've got the skills. It's just, sometimes it's just the luck of the draw with job stuff. If you're wanting a refresher course, go have at this. But then, again, the cons of this is all sort of, based around how far you are with your disability program life. Because yeah, if you're at the end of the road sort of thing, and you're pretty confident who you are, even though you've got issues, sort of like I do, I'm pretty confident most of the time, but there are times I just don't, life doesn't work, and I just kind of have to step back from it. You know, it's something that doesn't really work for me. And then, you kind of have to be aware of, is the facility kind of up to date? Are they taking good care of it? Do they have up-to-date technology? What are they expecting to teach you and things like that? These are things you kind of need to find out, because a lot of these places, I'm sure there are some probably nice ones out there, but with the one I went to, again, it was sort of like a warehouse. It wasn't really, a nice building or an office. It was just sort of a compartmentalized warehouse. And that just didn't look like something professional, like that was going to get me anywhere. And again, being put on programs to teach me how to type and sending me on to look for jobs when that was their job to help me look for jobs, just, again, wasn't really what I was expecting. And that's where I'm going to say you need to ask a lot of questions about this stuff. Maybe you could even ask to sit in for a day or two to see what the daily sort of grind there is like, so you can get an idea of what to expect. And if it feels like it's sort of that this is sort of, I don't want to say anything bad here, some bad words, it's kind of hard for me, but if it feels sort of like, they're just following some sort of script and they're kind of just, not really interacting with the class and they're just sort of reading out like a lecture, then, maybe this is not one of those good facilities. But if they're more engaged, if they've got presentations and PowerPoints and DVDs and all this stuff, then, you maybe have one of the nice facilities and might be one of the lucky ones. And then also, they do send you off at sometimes, if you need a diagnosis, to go get one. And that way, if you don't have a diagnosis, you can go get yourself one where you can officially say, this is what I am. I'm an ASPE, or I'm bipolar, or I'm depressive bipolar, or whatever. And, and then after you get that, if you need medication, or if you need special glasses, or if you need something else, that they'll help pay for that, because that's what they're there for. Then there's a con for that. The thing is that unfortunately for the place I was at, I had sort of a backup plan, because I knew a lady whose name was Dina, who actually works exclusively with ASPE people. Well, not just ASPE, but autistic in general people. But she knew a lot about ASPE because she has a lot of people like that come to her for counseling. And they'd given me a list of these people who did the testing to see if I had Asperger's syndrome. Well, took it to her, and she essentially told us that none of these people actually had the degree and the knowledge necessary to give a proper diagnosis. And that was sort of surprising to us. So she sent us back on their list and said, here, we've looked at these people and found out they don't really have the qualifications to diagnose what I believe that I have. Would any of these be appropriate? And the consensus I got back was no. Unless you pick from the name that's on our list, we're not paying for the diagnosis test that you have to go through. So my mother and my mom, had to pay out of pocket for ours. And then when I did get the diagnosis, and we come in and wave it in front of their face and say, hey, I need these special early lenses, which is what I'm wearing now, because I didn't go off their list of people who I guess are on their payroll, I don't know, and go get my diagnosis from one of them, they wouldn't pay then for my glasses because they didn't have whatever. So we then had to pay for this out of pocket, which again is expensive. A lot of these things are expensive, and so having help paying for that would be great, but if the people you're sending me to don't know what they're talking about, it's not going to be a diagnosis that helps me in any meaningful way throughout my life. And it's not going to be anything that's valid. So if I need, the SSDI program, the Social Security Disability Insurance, if they're not going to accept it, then I don't think I want to. So, again, I could go on for hours and hours about all the different problems you could possibly have with Voc Rehab. And again, to me, it's not really a worthwhile program, at least from my perspective, from somebody who went to one in Tennessee. I'm not going to say where, I'm not going to say all these people's names. This is very just, an informal sort of thing. And, I'm just, that's, I guess, the biggest summary I could give you guys right now, is it just wasn't a really good program. It never really helped me in any meaningful way. It was sort of, put together and it just sort of led me down a path and just took big chunk of my life away from me, of a time I could be doing something else, where I could be useful in another capacity doing something else. I could be studying to go off to college. I could be looking for jobs myself. I, could be volunteering somewhere if that's what I want to do, or, I could go off and have a life somewhere. And I spent most of my time there, and so it really felt like a waste of my time, a waste of the life that I had, and I still didn't get anywhere. It's sort of like when you go to the gym and you get on one of those exercise bikes. You're pedaling, but you're not going anywhere. That's kind of what I felt like. My brain was getting workout for sure, because I was having to sort of work with their program, which wasn't really working with me, and still didn't go anywhere. I was in the same spot when I left that program. I didn't have any new skills I didn't know beforehand, and I didn't have a job either. So, all in all, the first time I ever went through the program, I'd give him an F if I was a grading type. So, really, my summary of this whole scenario is, do your research, first off, before you even step into this program, if you're considering it seriously. Find out what you need to know. See if you can sit in and somebody, or somebody else can sit in for you and learn about what their program is like and things like that, if that's possible. See if you can set up a trial run if they won't allow you to sit in, where you could be part of the program and you could sit back there and maybe not take part so much, but see what things are like. Also, again, I say don't go into this program if you've been figuring out things on your own. If you've got therapists, if you've got life coaches, if you've got another disability service that's helping you out, I wouldn't recommend this, honestly, because they're going to tell you exactly what these people tell you, and you're not going to really go anywhere. It's not going to benefit you in any meaningful way, unless you're just hoping to meet more people that are disabled. That it will do. It just depends on how you're wanting to meet people. But there's also other meetings and stuff you can go to for various disabilities, and you can meet people there. And those might be even more helpful. So, again, it's sort of a, I don't know situation, where you have to weigh the options for yourself. And, I weighed the options, and it wasn't really the best thing. I left, I looked for jobs, still don't have one. Even though I'm going through it a second time yet, we're still sort of going through this process, and it's very difficult. And, we've had to, reorganize things a few times. And, we're sort of still trying to figure out where we're comfortable and things like that. So, again, Voc Rehab wasn't my cake. I didn't like it. Not to my style or my taste. And, it may be to y'all's. That's something that you'll have to figure out just for yourselves. You have to see where it's going to lead you, and if it's going to lead you somewhere you want to be. That's kind of the question you need to ask yourself when you decide to jump into a program like that. But anyway, that's all I've got for this video. If you liked what you saw, hit down the like button, and then if you want to make a comment, put it down in the comments and let me know what you think. And if you like this video, think about subscribing. Maybe you find something else on here that I talk about that you want to know. Or if you want to leave a comment, I'll make the next video of what you want to see in my next videos. give me a shout. See what you want to see. All right. So you guys take care. I'm gonna see about getting some sleep finally. Maybe I'll finally get off to bed. So you guys take care, and I'll see you next time.